Hey, welcome to Plants and Positivity. In this series, I'm sharing a mindset coupled with a simple plant task. I created this series to give myself a space to release perfectionism, stop procrastinating, and to grow in this space through more consistency. There is a concept of toxic positivity, which is like ignoring the full spectrum of emotions to happy wash things. This isn't that, because when I started this series, I wasn't actually feeling particularly happy. It's a space intended for authenticity and mindset. So thanks for joining in. Hey, welcome to this new series. This was just a new idea I decided to push forward that came from a suggestion in the comments of one of my videos. I'd asked for the types of things you guys would like to see in future recordings, and somebody said they like to watch people do plant chores. I liked that idea, and I agreed that it's pretty calming to watch somebody do little simple tasks. It's not a very complex video. It doesn't take a lot of energy to make or watch. But I was always worried it was going to be really boring. But I still really liked the idea, so I decided to couple it with sharing on some different mindset topics. I thought the perfect topic for this first video was perfectionism, because it's the exact reason I decided to start this series. Perfectionism just runs so rampant in our society today. I very much struggle from perfectionism and from touches of type A-ness. I think it's one of the biggest things behind procrastination too. It's a huge reason why I procrastinate towards things that ultimately I would really like to do. I'm sure you've done it too. You wait for everything to be perfect. You want yourself to be perfect, the circumstances to be perfect, the timing to be perfect, everything to be perfectly aligned, and until then, you don't get started on something you want to do. And it's been one of the major things that has always stopped me from coming on this platform more, is that I always want the videos to be perfect. I want the cinematography to be perfect, the visuals to be perfect, the sound to be perfect, the editing to be perfect. But wanting all that perfection stops me from just doing. And without the doing, I'm not growing or getting any better. I'm not moving towards that ideal. I'm just sitting there because it doesn't exist yet. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. The plant chore I have for this first video is a Monstera chore. I know my last video that I uploaded was a Monstera video too. It's just a coincidence. I've had this one, well, it's kind of one branch of my Monstera that I pulled off to propagate. I cut this off from the other Monstera that I repotted in my last video, and it's been sitting in water developing roots for months. So it has more than enough of an extensive root system, and it's ready to be potted up, but I've been procrastinating on that too. So today's chore and chill is potting up this Monstera and talking about releasing ourselves from perfectionism. Okay, so I'm gonna mix up my soil. I have organic potting mix, which is just the base soil I use. Then I also have fir bark. It's usually called an orchid mix. It's usually what I get. And that's to help aerate the soil. It's just these really barky chips. It helps to create coarseness to help make sure the water flows off. Here we have the final mixture. I added in some more perlite, which are the white specks in there. I'm gonna add water to the soil and mix it up. So perfectionism for me, at its heart, stems from some form of a lack of vulnerability. And vulnerability is one thing that I personally know that I very much struggle with. It's really hard to be vulnerable. People can take things that you're most sensitive about and throw them back in your face. Some people can pull away from you because of your flaws. And people can even poke at those flaws. You know, if you show people a less than perfect version of yourself, that's when you open yourself up for criticism and hurtful things that people can say or do to you. Trying to make yourself perfect or trying not to release anything until you feel that it's completely unscrutinizable is a way of trying to protect yourself. It's kind of like wearing a mask. A lot of people, myself included, wear a mask of perfectionism to stop ourselves from feeling vulnerable. But the lack of vulnerability is such a catch-22, because when we're not vulnerable, we don't allow ourselves to do the things that we need to grow. If you're interested in exploring the topic of vulnerability more, Dr. Brene Brown is one of my favorite authors on the topic. She's a shame and resilience author who writes on the topic of authenticity and vulnerability really often. I think I've probably read most things she's written, if not everything. And I always feel so much lighter and more enlightened when I read her perspectives based on research. Okay, I'm adding the plant in. Maybe I'll try to show you first. Let's see. I just put a light layer of soil down there, and I tried to make a little hole that I've now lost when I turned it sideways. Try to get it back. Oogie. But then I'm just gonna drop my little plant in. I'm just trying to place it in the soil in a way that makes sense. Part of me wants to turn it this way so it's more upright. And one thing I want to be clear about is there's a difference between perfectionism and intention. I think it's really important to do things with intention, but there is a difference between intention and perfectionism. Intention is putting thought and care behind the things you do, which we should all do, and perfectionism is reaching for unrealistic ideals that ultimately paralyze and discourage you from growing, getting better, or being authentic. So I have seen that sometimes people may be intentional and others try to frame it as you don't need to be such a perfectionist. But those two things are different. One of them is healthy and one of them is not. And I'd hate for intentional people to be less intentional because people were calling it perfectionism, and that makes you want to stop being intentional. Another thing I like about this concept is that in coupling it with a plant chore, I make sure that my ramblings are time bound. So I finish my chore and my intention is to be wrapping up my thought now. And I think I want my closing thought to be that it's really important for you to find, create a space where you're comfortable being vulnerable, you're moving yourself forward, and you're working on things where you're giving yourself the grace to fail, to create things imperfectly, to get things wrong, and to learn without making mistakes or doing things imperfectly. You're also drastically reducing your ability to learn. And that's really important. Failing can hurt. Falling flat on your face is never fun. But if you choose to learn from those moments, you will always grow and you will always be closer to your ideal than you were before. You guys have any thoughts on perfectionism? I know you do. Leave a comment down below. One of my greatest desires in life will always be to learn and grow. I've realized in the last year or two that there are habits I have and things that I do that actually stop that growth. And I'm sure that's true of so many people. We want something, but we're doing something to stop ourselves from getting there. And I'd be willing to bet perfectionism is a really common way that a lot of people are doing that. So many times we can let a task, a goal, an ambition get bigger than life in our head that it seems almost impossible to do it or complete it or start it even. I've put off potting this monstera for months, and I can't really tell you why. I've put off creating more videos for months. But I really think once you begin tackling tasks and showing yourself the accountability that you need to believe that you can do what it takes, it gets a little easier to leave the perfectionism behind. So here's my imperfectly perfect plant, and I'm gonna go work on editing this imperfectly perfect video, and I'm gonna grow. See you with another plant, another mindset, and don't be a lurker. I hope I see you down in the comments below too. Bye.